you for joining us.
Thank you, Mrs. DeVore, and good morning and welcome everybody. It's really wonderful to see so many of you joining us on the call this morning. We so appreciate you taking the time to come out and hear a few updates, but as Mrs. DeVore was saying, most importantly, to have a forum in which you can ask some questions and get some responses to things that might be on your mind today. So again, we're so happy to have you with us. And we'll begin as we always do with a prayer, asking God to bless us and our time together. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, and kindle in them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and they shall be created, and you will renew the face of the earth. Lord, by the light of the Holy Spirit, you have taught the hearts of your faithful. In the same Spirit, help us to relish what is right, and always rejoice in your consolation. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So this morning, I picked a topic to give you a little bit of an overview on. And what I'd like to do is share with you some details about our reaccreditation process, which is now underway. You may have seen a reference to that in the school newsletter just a couple of weeks back. So I wanted to share just a few more details on that and give you an update as to where we are in that process. So my presentation, I would say, will go maybe 10 minutes. And then following that, we'll open it up for Q&A this morning. So as you're aware, All Saints is accredited through the Virginia Catholic Education Association. And the way this came to be is that, years ago, up until 1984, all of the Catholic schools in the state of Virginia were actually accredited through the state. And in 1984, the state of Virginia charged Catholic schools with the responsibility of coming up with a parallel accreditation process, something outside of their process. And so at that time, the Virginia Catholic Education Association was formed between the Diocese of Arlington and the Diocese of Richmond. And we refer to that as VCEA. Richmond actually left the organization just a few years ago, so now it's just the Arlington Diocese. But VCEA has oversight through the Virginia Council of Private Education, VCPE. So it's kind of complicated. There's a lot of acronyms moving here. Basically, what it comes down to is the state charges the Virginia Council for Private Education with ensuring that all the different associations for accreditation meet certain standards and approval. So long way of saying VCEA, which is our association, is overseen by VCPE and endorsed by the state. And it's through that process that we maintain our accreditation. The way that happens is every 6 years, the school completes a self-study process. And we have just undertaken that starting in August. The chairperson for this project is our assistant principal, Mrs. Horgan. And we have a steering committee comprised of Mr. Roy, our Spanish teacher, Mrs. Coughlin, 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Honkus, 8th grade teacher, Mr. Redmond, PE, and Miss Carroll, 4th grade. And they're all going to lead committees to look at 4 different domains within our school. There'll be a group that looks at our mission and Catholic identity, a group that looks at governance and leadership, a group that looks at academic excellence, and a 4th group that looks at operational vitality. And so they will begin their work this month as subcommittees and finish that around February and March of 2022. Their primary tasks are going to be to respond to questions that are part of the self-study process. So they will provide a narrative response, and then they will also assist in the scoring of benchmarks. So VCEA provides a number of benchmarks for each of the 4 domains, and the school has the opportunity to determine whether they're on the scale of 1 to 4, where we are, with 4 being exceeds benchmark, 3 is fully meets the benchmark, 2 is partially meets the benchmark, and 1 does not meet the benchmark. So in addition to scoring our own performance, we then have to provide evidence to back that up. And so throughout this year, the faculty and staff and administration will be gathering digital evidence that we can put into that self-study document. When that document is completed, that will be around February, we'll have that printed, and then we will send that to the members of a visiting team comprised of approximately 8 members. Pre-COVID, the visiting team would actually come out to the school and spend from Tuesday evening until Friday observing the classrooms, interviewing faculty, staff, administrators, parents, and students. This year, because of the pandemic, it remains to be seen whether or not that will be an on-site visit or virtual through Zoom. But in either case, they're still charged with that task of going through and hopefully verifying that we are who we say we are in our self-study document. Additionally, they will then rate the school in all of the same benchmarks, determining whether or not where we are on that scale from 1 to 4. At the completion of that visit, the visiting team will offer commendations to our school, as well as recommendations for future growth and improvement. And perhaps most importantly, they'll make a recommendation as to our continued status as an accredited school. Once that recommendation is made, then it goes to the VCEA committee, and they make the final determination for our continued accreditation. Upon completion of that process, we then take all of the recommendations from the visiting team and we combine that with our own goals and we create a 5-year plan. And next year would be year 1 of that plan. We march through that process. After 5 years, we get to the 6th year and we start the cycle again with the self-study. So it's really an upward spiral by which we're striving for excellence, and thus the name Design for Excellence. So a little update as to where we are in the process now. Last Friday, following the noon dismissal, the faculty and staff met to revise our mission statement. Decision had been made to do a rewrite of the statement, to not just simply revise our existing statement, but rewrite it. So that took place last Friday. I do anticipate that after Father Lee has had an opportunity to review it and give input, that I'll be sending that out to the parents to share that progress with you. The next focus for us is our philosophy of learning statement, which looks at the question of what do we believe about learning? How do children learn and how do we teach them? And we need to specify that. So that's going to be the next step that the faculty and staff are working on. And then, of course, as I said a short while ago, they'll also be starting their subcommittee meetings to work on gathering evidence and answering questions. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. In addition to all of the planning and the instruction and the assessment that the teachers are coordinating, to the side, they're very engaged in this process as well. And I'm so grateful for their dedication, and to Mrs. Horgan for her leadership and those members of the steering committee. As a parent, you might be asking yourself, well, how can you support the process? What can you do? 2 things I would say. The first one is respond to the parent survey. So in early October, we will be sending out a comprehensive survey that is part of our DFE accreditation process. You know, if you take a little bit of time to give us your feedback on it, we'd be most appreciative. The second thing you could do is continue to support the teachers and staff through the celebration station. If you haven't heard of this, we started this last year. When parents could not come into the building, they were asking, how can we support the school? And one of the PTO members created this little cart, and it has a nice message to the faculty and staff on it. And people send in donations of bottled waters and teas and sodas and candy bars and energy bars and things like that. And we restock that every week for the faculty and staff. And they love that. They absolutely love it. The beginning of this year, I got feedback from the faculty. They asked if I could bring that up with the PTO and ask if the parents could continue to make that happen. And of course, the PTO got right behind that. So there's another way that you can certainly support the faculty and staff in all of their good efforts. So there is a very quick overview of our reaccreditation process, Design for Excellence. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have on that, or on anything else that might be on your mind this morning. And you can feel free to either unmute and just, share your question, or if you're more comfortable dropping it into the chat box. I know that Mrs. DeVore will keep track of that for me.
Okay, no question, Mr. Conroy.
Looks like
hi, good morning. This is Larissa Sequeira. This is my husband, Bruno. We're the parents of Maria. She's in the 1st grade. We have a question about the Spirit Day. We got a note, I think it's tomorrow. We are not fully aware of what it is. I know it's different clothes or what happens. So if you can give us a little bit of a background there. Thank you.
Sure. So Spirit Day, we have those periodically, and the students can wear their All Saints Spirit gear. So we have an online store where you can buy Spirit wear. It has our logo on it. A lot of our students don't have that Spirit gear per se, so they might have previous year Spirit shirts from various fundraisers or efforts that we had, our theme shirts from prior years. That's perfectly fine as well. You know, a child who does not have any of those could just wear our school colors, blue and white. So basically it's a dress down day by which students can show their school pride by wearing school colors, blue and white, or any of the Spirit wear that we've worn in the last several years.
Okay, so it can be any combination of blue and white colors, is that what you're saying for tomorrow? And that's
Right.
tomorrow, right?
Correct. Mhm.
Yeah. Any shoe, does that go for the shoes as well? They have to wear school shoes, the black.
No,
shoes.
they wouldn't have to wear school shoes. No.
Thank you.
You're
PE
welcome.
shirts too. They can also wear their PE shirts if they wanted to.
Okay.
And PE sweatshirts, they could wear that too.
And for girls, I'm sorry to be so detailed. For girls, does it mean like a dress? They can wear a dress, or does it have to be like a shirts and pants? Or
Most of the time, the students will dress down on Spirit Days.
okay.
So, I mean, they can wear a dress, but most of them will choose to dress down rather than dressing up.
Well, you don't know our girl, so.
Okay. Well, she's most welcome to dress up for the
Yeah.
occasion, of course.
In her closet. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And jeans are acceptable?
Yes. Mhm.
Good question.
Okay.
I had a question. I am Veronica. I'm Nicholas's mom. He's in the first grade. And at one point I saw on the website there was a partnership with the soccer program after school. And I think that kind of stopped due to COVID. Do you have any idea if that'll come back? Is there a possibility of that returning or?
Thank you for that question. We had actually just begun the process of partnering with an outside organization to provide after-school soccer instruction for our students, particularly our younger students. And then we had to put that on pause because of COVID. So I have been in touch with that organization. I don't foresee that we're going to start it for the fall, but I would say it's possible that we'll roll that out for the spring.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Comer, we did receive some questions in chat. One is, will there be any kind of winter break camp or care?
So just to clarify, I'm assuming winter break is referring to when we're closed for
think-
2 weeks over Christmas?
Christmas. Mhm.
Okay. So no, there won't be any camp that we offer during that time, and we won't be offering extended day either. Extended day is only offered on school days. So the building will actually be officially closed for that 2-week period. And the same would be true for our Easter holiday in the spring and any of the other holidays during the course of the year.
In a question kind of related to the last one regarding soccer, we had another question. A parent would like information on extracurricular sports as well, such as the basketball, volleyball program that we offer through JCYO and other things of that nature, the extracurriculars.
Sure. So our sporting program is handled through the Junior CYO organization. CYO stands for Catholic Youth Organization. At the high school level, it's CYO. At the middle school level, it's Junior CYO. And it's actually a parish organization. So any child who's a member of the parish can participate on the teams. It just so happens that the vast majority of students who do participate are actually from All Saints Catholic School. There is a basketball program for girls and boys, separate teams, starting, I believe, in 3rd grade, 3rd through 8th grade. And then we have girls volleyball in 7th and 8th grade, and a twice-a-year track and field event. So in advance of those seasons, you'll see information going out through the Sentinel and through special email blasts to let parents know about those opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. We have questions related to volunteering. One is, how do working parents meet the volunteering requirements? And then there's a question about what to do, who to contact if you would like to volunteer.
Sure. So at this point, we don't have any parents volunteering in the building. at this, and we haven't opened up that opportunity yet for parents because we wanted to go through the first 4 weeks of the school year and then reassess to take a look at how we're doing with COVID mitigation strategies. We're doing pretty well. You know, as you know from the emails I sent out, we've had 2 cases. We would hope that we wouldn't have any cases, you know, but we know from time to time that's going to be a situation that we're going to have to respond to. So we've only had 2 cases, so very limited. So at this point, I am anticipating opening up volunteer opportunities in the near future for parents. So look for updates via an email blast or the Sentinel newsletter. To encourage parents to volunteer, we have something called the Stewardship Shares program, and we ask parents to earn 25 shares over the course of the year. And you earn shares by attending meetings. So for example, you would get a share for coming to today's coffee. So note that. If you go to a PTO meeting, you get a share. Anything you do to be involved in the life of the school and to support the mission of the school, you can earn a share. For parents who work during the day and are not able to visit the campus, we certainly understand that that's the case for many, many parents. So there's opportunities to send items in. You heard me mention the celebration station, you know, those kinds of donations, you earn shares for those. There'll be different times throughout the year where there'll be special collections, maybe for the Penny Bazaar in October. There will be messages that go out asking parents to support, not just through their time and their energy, but also making donations. So there's a vast array of ways that you can earn stewardship shares.
Is there like a help desk or something where you can, I saw something online where you can, I don't know if jobs are posted or things that need help with are posted. Is that?
That's correct. So there's an online software program called Help Counter. That's the name. So you would actually go in there and create an account. The PTO has set that up. Only our school parents can access that. And that's a place where you can not only be aware of what the volunteer opportunities are, but you can also track your stewardship shares. Now, I will share with you that it operates very much on the honor system. Okay, so as you're earning shares, you can keep track of those and then put them in to Help Counter periodically, or you can put them in every time you earn a share. At the end of the year in the spring, we'll go in and parents who have filled all of their shares, we thank them for that. Anybody who hasn't, we let them know the balance of shares remaining. And I believe it is $15 per unearned share. The vast majority of parents, and when I say vast majority, I mean almost everybody, earns their shares over the course of the year just through their involvement and participation.
So I have another question about volunteering in general. We all have to be Virtues trained to help one-on-one within the school. If we're already Virtues trained, is there something that we need to do to have that reported to All Saints, or just is it enough to say I'm Virtues trained?
Well, we would need to verify that, but you're absolutely correct. We want to ensure that everybody who's coming into the school is eligible to have access and interaction with our students. So there are 2 components. There's the background check, which we call Virtus, and there's the training. So if you're interested in volunteering in the school and you have not yet started the background check, I would encourage you to do that because it takes a little bit of time to go through that process. I have been including the information as well as a link in the newsletter the last few weeks, and it will be included again in tomorrow's newsletter. You click on that link, it takes you to the diocesan website, and there you'll create a login and you'll complete the application, and that starts that process. The second part of that is the actual training, which is called Virtus. And you can go to virtus.org to register for a session. There's actually a session that's going to be offered in person at All Saints in the near future, and that'll be published in the newsletter as well. That's about a 3.5 to 4 hour training on safe environment programs and what we need to be aware of to prevent child abuse from taking place in and around our community. To begin volunteering, you don't have to have completed the training, but you have to complete the background check. The training has to be completed within 45 days of your first day of volunteer service. So there's a little bit of flexibility on the Virtus training, but the background check has to be completed.
For those of us who are already Virtues trained and have completed the background check, you know, for me, it was at Holy Trinity years ago. Is there a way for you to verify that, or should we take the initiative to try to get that verified for you?
Correct. You could reach out to the diocese and ask that your information be transferred to All Saints. because right now you would be on the Holy Trinity database, and just ask that that be copied over to All Saints. You could also contact our site coordinator, and Mrs. DeVore could drop this into the chat box. It's Christina Jimenez, and she could put her email in there. You could reach out to her to let her know that you'd like to confirm your compliance and eligibility to start volunteering.
Okay.
And how often do we have to do the Virtus training?
The training is periodic. The diocese does push out email renewals to individuals. So once you've done the initial training, it's a number of years before you'll get an email update from the diocese. But they manage that on their side. There's nothing that you would have to do to keep track of that.
Mr. Conway, I have a question about the virtues and practice, the VIPs. Is there currently at All Saints a written assignment that goes along with the book, which I don't think I've received through All Saints, but at our previous school, monthly, like this month charity, there would be a written assignment, and I'm just wondering what's the expectation of that at All Saints?
Mm-hmm. A wonderful question. So our virtues program is entitled Virtues in Practice, and this is a program designed by the Nashville Dominican Sisters. Right now, we don't have a book that we actually use with the students or with the parents. So it's at each teacher's discretion as to how they can effectively integrate that into their religion class and across the curriculum. So sometimes it'll be announced through school-wide reminders to the students, and then the teachers will put it on their board and make it a regular talking point in their classroom.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And a little way off topic, but it's a parent hot topic, is uniforms. In reading the uniform code over and over, I have a 4th grader, Mason Sanchez, who's new to All Saints this year. And for 4th grade, I understand they wear the tie for dress up days and mass, if that's correct. Now, as far as the sweater, is that required for the dress up days or anytime they're wearing the white button down?
Okay, so the sweaters are part of the uniform in the winter time. So that would be required then. Up until that point, they're not required, but students can wear the sweater or the sweatshirt if they're cold inside the building.
Mm-hmm.
But during the winter time, which typically starts right around November 1st, and runs until about the middle of April. And you'll see these dates in the calendar, which will be sent home, I believe, within a week. They're confirmed there for you. But during the wintertime, they would have to wear the sweaters every day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to confirm.
Sure.
And also, I meant to say thank you so much for your commitment to the school and your service. Being there that long is definitely a testament to your work and how much the parents and the organization really likes you. So thank you for that. And also in the spirit of that and males and role models, how many male teachers or staff members are there? Because I've been pleasantly surprised and impressed that I'm hearing lots of things from my son, Mr., and it's really, I really welcome that diversity. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. It continues to be a great joy for me to be in the community here at All Saints. One of the things that I've really enjoyed through the decades is seeing the growth in the community, the vibrancy of ministries, and just so much has happened in our parish, so many beautiful things, and to be a part of that has been a great blessing for me. So thank you again for those kind words. It's a wonderful thing that we do have so many male teachers in our school. As you were saying that, I just kind of did a mental count, and I think I came up with 4 off the top of my head. So we have Mr. Tessier, teaching 7th and 8th grade religion. He's also our parish youth minister. He also teaches 6th grade theater arts. He has a background in theater. Mr. Roy is our Spanish teacher for grades 3 through 8. Mr. McDonald is our social studies teacher for grades 6, 7, and 8. And of course, Mr. Redmond, he's famous because he's the PE teacher, right? Everybody loves PE and Mr. Redmond. So we're very fortunate to have all of them here.
Thank you.
Dave, we had a question about whether there's any update on kindergarten aid for Mr. Worley.
That's a really great question. Thank you. Not as of yet, but I'm very hopeful that I will have news by next week. I'm continuing to speak with candidates, have an interview actually tomorrow. So it's possible that there'll be a decision made by early next week. And as soon as that is the case, I'll push out that information.
In follow-up to the questions regarding the stewardship share program, there was a question as to why we call it shares.
It's a great question. And you can tell from my pause, I really don't have an answer to that.
At the time, I think it was about just wanting it to be more like along the lines of being a stewardship where the whole community is in support of each other. I think that was how the wording. Remember the previous wording now, it's been a while.
Well, it used to be points for parents.
Points, that's right.
Points for parents. And we've gone through a few versions of this through the years. When I got here at All Saints, it was points for parents. And after a couple of years, I thought, well, let's just change it up and let's not even have this requirement because, you know, people want to support the mission of the school and they'll be involved. We don't need to actually, you know, track it. But what we learned is, you know, people get busy and it really helps to kind of make it a priority. So we brought it back, reframed it, and then probably about 8 or 10 years ago, renamed it Stewardship Shares. And, you know, listening to your comments, Mrs. DeVore, I do think it speaks to the point that we all share in this community of All Saints. We all share in our support of the mission. It's not something that we can do on the inside of the building by ourselves. We really need parents to help us out. And the research bears that out, that when parents are actively engaged in the life of a school, everybody wins. The students do better and the school really thrives.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. I had a follow-up school uniform questions regarding the boys' uniform. Can the boys wear uniform shorts during the beginning of the school year since it's still hot and warm outside? And I think maybe a review of when it changes to the winter uniform in that.
Yes. So this is a question about the PE uniform.
It says school uniform. Can the boys wear uniform shorts during the beginning of the school year?
So it would only be the PE uniform because we don't currently have
the shorts anymore.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We used to have that. We had multiple uniforms that were a little bit more complex, and in the interest of cutting costs for parents, you know, we simplified it. So they could wear on their PE day, they could wear their PE shorts, certainly, you know, right up until the winter time. And you know, that's your choice as a parent and your child's comfort level too.
Another question related to the shares is well, first of all, the shares are per family and not through individual parents. So each parent doesn't have to, it's a family unit. And then also where you track the shares, that might be information that we want to include in the newsletter. I think that is in the newsletter or this week's newsletter.
We can certainly make sure that it is a link to the stewardship shares.
Hi, I'm Amanda Corvetto. I'm Ava's mom in 3rd grade. And I just have a question for Mr. Conroy. If you could possibly maybe expand on some of the extracurriculars, such as art, theater, and music. For when does that start? What grade do those programs start?
So generally the extracurricular programs start in the older grades, you know, typically around 4th grade. But again, it depends upon what the activity is. So for example, we're going to be restarting our choir. Now that students can sing, we have to have it in small groups and have them socially distanced. But we're going to be restarting our choir. The band, as you're aware of, we put out information about that already. First day of lessons is today. That starts in 4th grade. Art, we have had an art club in the past. It'll be the determination of our new art teacher, you know, if she would like to take that on during her first year. But that's something that can certainly be considered. In previous years, we have partnered with another organization to offer the Little Medical School and the Little Veterinarian School. This is an opportunity to have an outside expert come in and offer after-school sessions for our students. And it's typically in the lower grades, grades 3, 4, and 5. And we'll have maybe 10 or 15 students per class. And once a week after school for 6 weeks, they'll learn a little bit about the medical career or surgery or veterinarian science. And they've enjoyed that immensely. They get their little lab coats and everything. It's a lot of fun for them. We also have a student council organization which fosters student leadership. And so we're going to be hosting elections before long for this new year. National Junior Honor Society in the middle school. And this is an organization that affirms scholarship, citizenship, character, leadership, and service among our 7th and 8th grade students. We've also in the past had a Peace and Justice Players Group, and this is a group that supports social outreach to the local community and also sharing of gospel messages in the lower grades. So they would read a gospel passage and then go into another classroom and act that out, and then also sponsor service activities around the school. So that's an opportunity we've also had. Robotics is something we've had now for several years. We have a robotics team in the middle school and had an opportunity to participate in a few competitions. So every year there's a slightly different mix of after-school activities. The latest proposal is for a Creation Care organization. This would be a student-led group that would focus on stewardship activities to show care of God's creation, particularly on the outside part of our campus. So this could be a group that could sponsor recycling and green efforts around the school. So more details to come on that one. That one is still in development.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Conroy, there was a question about extracurricular or classes available for communion, first communion preparation for a child who is in 4th grade. So just a discussion of that, how that works, that process works.
Absolutely. So sacramental preparation is handled through the All Saints Religious Education Department. So hypothetically, if you have a child in the lower grades, 1st or 2nd grade, by their attendance at All Saints and participation in religion class, they will fulfill the requirements for being prepared to receive their sacraments in 2nd grade, which would be First Reconciliation and First Communion. Same thing applies in the middle school for confirmation prep, confirmation taking place in 8th grade. If you're interested in your child receiving the sacraments outside of those particular years, or if your child has not yet been baptized and you wish to begin that process, then I would encourage you to contact the Religious Education Department directly. Our Director of Religious Education is Mrs. Samantha Welsh, and Mrs. DeVore can drop her email into the chat box as well. When she gets your question and your inquiry, she'll most likely follow up with me, because sometimes there's a distinct path that we can create for a child who's actually in our Catholic school, rather than having to attend other classes outside. So I'll partner with Mrs. Welsh on that and work out what we think will hopefully be a very supportive solution for you.
One thing I want to mention that came in the chat, and I personally love this idea, and it's something that we had talked about implementing this year, because at the end of last year, one of our school families donated some mannequins to us. And that may seem, like odd, what will we do with the mannequins? But we have a really robust veterans program here. And we have mannequins that we use for that display. So it's really helpful because we display uniforms and things like that, different military uniforms. So we were excited to get those donations. And now we have a couple of extra mannequins, and that could achieve the suggestion that came in the chat box, which is it possible for the school to have a model picture of students wearing complete uniforms for boys and girls as a guideline for new students? We didn't have enough uniforms. And so there was some, we didn't know exactly what they needed to wear. So thank you for that suggestion. And that's something that we are looking at implementing. And then we would possibly have those available. So like at the end of a tour or an open house event, new families could see what the uniform looks like. So thank you for that suggestion. We're looking into implementing that.
And related to the uniform questions, let me just give a little perspective for you on this. As new parents, this is perhaps a little bit more challenging time to learn about the All Saints uniform and what it looks like in its entirety. And the reason is this: last year, during the pandemic, we purposely chose the things that we were going to emphasize and the things that we were not going to give a lot of attention to. The uniform is important, but when we had the windows open during the winter to have a lot of air exchange in the classroom, students were wearing jackets and other sweatshirts, and it was just the nature of our experience last year. And so we were not as attentive to the uniform because we also saw it as an unnecessary stressor. People were going through so much, we weren't going to be really specific on the uniform last year. So right now we're in the process of kind of doing a reset, getting everybody kind of back to the basics, back to those expectations of what the uniform should look like. So that's why you might be seeing some variance, when you look at how the students are wearing the uniforms. Know that it's our goal over this first month to kind of bring everybody into, fuller compliance on that.
I had another question related to volunteering at the school. If you only volunteer virtual, and if you're a working parent and will only be volunteering virtually through the different avenues that you discussed, do you still need the background check process?
No, you would not need that. You would only need the background check process if you're going to have interaction with students on site or off site, like on a field trip, even if it's incidental contact. So if you're coming in to volunteer in a meeting space in the school building, even though there aren't students in that space, you would have incidental contact with students while you're on campus. So that would be required. But if you're volunteering completely off site, no, you would not need to complete the background check.
And in a related question, a family recently went through the training 2 weeks ago, and were told that their names would be added to a list to be sent to the school. And they just wanted to verify whether that was the case.
That's correct. So when you complete the training and the background check, you're added to the diocesan database, and All Saints has its own segment of that database. So Mrs. Jimenez, Christina Jimenez, our site coordinator, she tracks all of that and provides to me regular reports and summaries. What we'll do in the office is, as we have volunteers coming in, we'll verify that they're eligible to be in the building when they first report, and then periodically we'll sort of audit the system as well.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. I have a question about parent conferences. Will there be parent-teacher conferences when first quarter grades come out, or sometime later in the year?
Yes, so we will have conferences at the end of the first trimester. So All Saints, like the rest of the diocesan schools, elementary schools, transitioned from 4 quarters to 3 trimesters about 3 years ago. So they're 12-week marking periods. The parent-teacher conferences will actually take place prior to the close of the first marking period, and they are scheduled for November 11th and 12th. So November 11th will be a half day with conferences in the afternoon, and November 12th will be conferences all day. I've not yet made a decision as to whether those will be in person or virtual, and of course that obviously will be informed as to how we're doing with COVID and rates of transmission in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. I had a question about fundraising. Are there opportunities to lead fundraising activities such as car washes?
Absolutely. The PTO is always looking for more volunteers. And you see Mrs. Ballard, she's shaking her head. Mrs. Ballard's a member of our PTO and on the call with us today. And thanks for being with us, Mrs. Ballard. There are many opportunities to be involved with the PTO. And if you have ideas from prior school experiences in regards to fundraisers that were really successful, we'd want to know about that too, because we're always looking at what's the opportunity that's out there that's going to be the right fit for our school community at a particular moment in time. So I would encourage you to reach out to the PTO.
Thank you. We have a recommendation that came in to have a sign out front at drop-off on noon dismissal days to keep busy parents on schedule. Other schools have used an A-frame stating noon dismissal.
Oh, I see, like a posted reminder that day?
Yeah, like we do when there's a spirit event and things like that. Sometimes the PTO wheels out the frame signs that we have.
I think that's a great idea.
On noon dismissal days.
And would they count as shares when you volunteer for PTO?
Yes, yes. Anything that you would do to support the PTO would count as a share. And just to kind of connect the dots there, if there was a parent that volunteered to take care of that sign and put it out there on half days, you could get shares for that as well. So again, anything you do to support the school, you can earn a share.
We had a question related to back to school night. At the back to school night, the teacher mentioned Schoology. Will the school be sending out information to create that account, or do we need to contact the office to get that account set up? What process is there for that?
Okay, so everybody has a Schoology account. It's used primarily in the older grades, not so much in the primary. But it's important that you have access and you're comfortable with it, because if at any time we need to move a class or a grade level or the entire school online, Schoology is our primary tool of communication. So at All Saints, we use PowerSchool, which is our student information system. That's where we have all our enrollment information, contact information for students. Schoology is our learning management system. So it's in that software that the teachers will list expectations, assignments. When we were doing online learning, they'll actually post the work in there so that students can see, the worksheets and materials that they're going to need to complete their learning tasks. So if you do not yet have a Schoology login, you can follow up with our computer teacher, technology teacher, Mrs. Pettigen. And again, Mrs. DeVore can drop her email into the chat box for you as well.
Mr. Conroy, we also had a question about where a parent can find a registration for an extracurricular activity. So if they're interested in participating in those, something like robotics or sports, and how they go about registering for those. And then will the classes be after hours?
Sure. So the registration process for extracurriculars is handled by the activity moderator. So for example, last year we had a newspaper. If we restart the newspaper, then the middle school language arts teacher, who's the moderator, would send out a message to the middle school students and or their parents. In the lower grades, the communication is going to go directly to parents. For example, if it's a little medical school, we'll send home a flyer, an electronic flyer to you to advertise that opportunity. So again, it will be on a case-by-case basis, and it will be coming from the moderator of that organization. There was a second part to that question, Mrs. DeVore. Can you remind me of it?
It was whether all the classes would be after school.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it would be after school. The one exception is band. There are many lessons during the school day. So for example, beginner woodwinds would meet for 30 or 40 minutes at a particular time on Tuesday. And it rotates from week to week so that the children aren't missing the same academic class every Tuesday.
I have a question related to uniform. Can students substitute the pants to a lighter material, but the same color to be less hot in the early fall and late spring?
All right, good question. We do ask that parents purchase the uniform pants only from Flynn and O'Hara, and they are a particular weight and a particular design. So that's one of those things where there isn't any flexibility built into it. And this can sometimes be a little bit of a transition for parents who are coming to All Saints from a school where they had a dress code. At All Saints, we don't have a dress code, we actually have a uniform. And so with a dress code, parents would be told, okay, this is the colors, you have to wear these colors and this design, and then they can pick from any particular vendor. At All Saints, we have a uniform and a uniform provider. And so by having everybody purchase through Flynn and O'Hara, it really creates greater, it's redundant to say it, but uniformity.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. A question about carpool. How is it handled if several students live in the same neighborhood and would like to do carpool in the afternoon? So riding together.
Sure. So parents can form their own carpools. It would be important that you notify the school that you're authorizing that parent of the other family to drive your children home each day to pick them up from school. If you are in a carpool, then carpools are assigned to the back lot of afternoon dismissal.
A question regarding play dates and things outside of school. As new to the school in the area, we would appreciate getting to know the other parents, maybe for play dates, etc. Is there a parent contact list available?
We don't have a list as of yet. Every year we do publish a directory. And so, you know, from going through Power School, the enrollment process in August, that you were able to check whether or not you'd like your information published in the directory. So that directory will become available probably in about a month. We don't send it to the publisher until a few weeks into the school year because there continue to be changes. But once you get that directory, it'll have a list of students by grade level, and then the contact information for parents who've approved the publishing of that information.
I had a follow-up question regarding the new dismissals. Can an email reminder be sent out for early dismissal also?
I mean, there's no reason that we couldn't. You know, we do put it in the newsletter the week before, but that's something that we can consider, just recognizing that parents are busy. You know, we can give that consideration as well.
Can you please share the contact information for All Saints resource teacher to assist with potential student assistance plans?
Sure. So we have two resource teachers. Mrs. Paulin works with students in grades pre-K through 3rd grade, and Mrs. Patricic works with students in grades 4th through 8th grade. And again, Mrs. DeVore will put their email information, their contact information into the chat box. If you have any questions at any time, you know, about your child's performance, or if you are concerned about a potential learning difference or disability, you know, I would encourage you to reach out to them and have that conversation. They'd be more than happy to assist you.
And a somewhat related question as well, is there a teacher / director directory for all emails? And I don't know if that would relate to the website listing or if there's a different way to approach that.
So if I understand the question correctly, is there a list of all faculty
Teacher.
staff emails?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You would know better than I, Mrs. DeVore.
Yes, that is available on the website.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, on the
So-
website under About All Saints, there's a list of all faculty and staff, and that has the contact information there for the teacher, the email contact information. So you can definitely look at that. And that also has the contact information for our resource teachers that Dave had mentioned, or Mr. Conrad had mentioned, Ms. Pollen, Mrs. Pollen, and then Mrs. Patricic as well. But I will also drop those specifically in the box. But for any of those that you're looking at, I'll provide a link to that so that, you know, you can have that and know where to access that information.
And in our email address protocol, it's always first initial last name at allsaintsva.org. So I'm D. Conroy at allsaintsva.org. So if you know the teacher's name and you follow that protocol, they should get the message.
Okay, question, recommendation, can we get a one-pager with all the different systems, registrations, updates that we need to keep up with? As new parents to the school, we get a little confused where to go for which information in all the different systems available. And that may relate to the Schoology and those, you know, the different access the parent needs.
Could you read the first part of the question again for me, Mrs.
Sure,
DeVore?
let me get back to that one. Okay, is there a one-pager, like one page of information with all the different systems, registrations / updates that we need to keep up with? As new parents to school, we get a little confused where to go for which information in all the different systems available.
Mm-hmm.
It may relate to Power School and Schoology in particular.
That's what I'm thinking. You know, that's a really excellent question. And that's something that we're going to work on. We actually had the system worked out pretty well a couple of years ago for the onboarding of new families and all the paper forms in the classrooms at orientation. And then the diocese made the decision to move the process online, the application process and completion of the enrollment, which makes good sense. So this year has been our year to kind of move in that direction and kind of work through those challenges. But I appreciate the question because there are a lot of moving pieces and it had to be quite confusing for you as new parents to figure out which form on which day goes to which person and which system. So believe me when I say that resonates with me, you know, because Mrs. DeVore and I and Mrs. Rodriguez, we had multiple meetings trying to streamline this as best we could. We've already made some decisions about how to improve that process for next year. So know that that is going to get better. As of right now, there is not that one pager, but I think the community would be well served by having a one pager for the onboarding, and then a one pager for, okay, now you're an All Saints parent. These are the next things to expect going forward. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, and in the past, the PTO has helped with pulling that together too, because oftentimes they'll get questions as well that may not even, make it their way to our office. So it's good that we can all discuss those. Question, will we receive a school calendar? The last time I checked, the online calendar only had dates through October. The online calendar actually does have dates, I believe, through the whole year now. We have a wonderful volunteer who's been doing that for us. But Mr. Conroy can answer the question we get regarding the calendar.
I believe the calendars have come in. I think I saw a couple boxes in the mailroom that look like they're the calendar. So you may see them by the end of this week, actually.
And will there be another, okay, back to uniform. Will there be another uniform locker sale? And also related to uniform, are the pants only for the boys, or do the girls have a pants option as well?
At this time, the pants are just for the boys. We will have another uniform exchange sale for you. The date to be determined. Mrs. Steckity, our former PTO president, has taken on the leadership of that and is working closely with Mrs. Horgan. So when that next date is determined, we'll announce that to you so you can plan accordingly.
We had a question related to STEM. I know you mentioned robotics. Are there any other activities in STEM? Does All Saints have a STEM club or other activities in STEM? And I guess also to add to that, some of the things we do within the classroom in STEM.
Sure. The only after school activity or extracurricular activity related to STEM right now is the robotics club in 7th and 8th grade. The teachers have been incorporating aspects of STEM in their curriculum. A number of years ago, we had a program called the Lego More to Math, and the teachers that were here at the time got training on that as well as the materials. I know that one of our 1st grade teachers continues to incorporate that in her math program. There's also an effort to incorporate coding in the program. I know Mrs. Pettigen, our technology coordinator, emphasizes that each year with a particular day of coding for our students. So it's less formal. There's not necessarily a programmatic approach to it, but the teachers do incorporate STEM activities in their math and science classrooms.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. Had a question regarding carpooling situations, like how a parent could potentially go about setting up a carpool. This one is in particular is related to Haymarket. Is there a list of people carpooling from such as Piedmont and Haymarket? So how would a parent who was interested in a carpool go about seeing if that could be a possibility?
Sure. I would say step one would be to refer to our school directory to identify families that live in that particular area. So if any of you are in need of a carpool and you're asking this question, you could stop by the office and we could give you a copy of the directory from last year as a starting point. And then of course, when the new directory is available, we can forward that as well. So you could try to just reach out to those families to ask that question. Years ago, we did have a parent who coordinated an online carpool setup program. It was closed. Only All Saints parents could access it because it had information and maps as to where people resided. We don't have anybody providing that service to the school right now, but that's something I would like to see us start again because I can see the school growing in the next couple of years and it'd be helpful to have that for parents. So if any of you have a background in software and technology, you might like to help with that, don't hesitate to send me an email.
And another family actually had posted to the chat as well that they live in Gainesville and are interested in, so keeping that in mind, anybody out there at Haymarket or Gainesville, looks like we have some takers interested in carpooling. So hopefully we can move that forward. I've also posted the email address of Mr. Cooper and the PTO, All Saints PTO at allsaintsva.org. There were some questions about that, how to get a hold of the PTO, members of the PTO. Question related to uniforms. When can we bring uniforms to donate? And yeah, I guess that's one question. When for the closet?
Sure, you can drop off uniforms at any time. You can just put them in a bag and just walk them in and leave them at the front office, and we'll make sure that they get down to the uniform closet for you.
Okay. Question related to 1st grade. Who is the director of curriculum for 1st grade?
We don't have a director of curriculum for 1st grade in particular. The first grade teachers work closely together. They collaborate. Mrs. Harrell has been here longer, you know, than Mrs. Slater, and so she has more institutional knowledge and gives a lot of input in the instructional planning process. But there's not, you know, a director of curriculum per se for that level.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. I think that I have gone, oh, we might have found a match on the carpool situation, so that was wonderful. I think that we have gone through all the questions in the chat. Opening it back up, does anybody have any additional questions?
I actually have something, Mrs. DeVore, and it's not so much a question, but just to kind of give you a little bit of feedback, and feel free to chime in and let me know how your experience is with this. But I guess about, you know, 20 or 30 minutes ago, someone was asking a question about the uniform, and they said, I have a question about the hot button topic. I thought it was going to be carpool, but it ended up being uniform, because right now for me, it seems like carpool is the real stressor in our community, and we're trying to figure that out and fine tune some things. So here's a couple of updates. I'll be sending a message out to the community later today. And we're looking at 2 refinements. The first one is expanding the parking for families that are picking up behind the school. So we'll be sending out a map because we're going to have more capacity for cars. The goal is to keep traffic off of Stonewall Road. So look for an update coming on that. And then the second thing is going to be a reminder to parents about only turning right when they enter and exit the property during times of heavy traffic. So that went out last week, and I know that it created a lot of chatter among the parents. I think there were some questions, you know, does Mr. Conroy mean this? Is it true we can only turn right on and off of the property? And during times of heavy traffic, it is true, because what can happen is if someone's on Stonewall Road and they're coming down and they want to turn left into that back parking lot, we can have the traffic back up all the way through the traffic signal at the intersection of 28 and Stonewall. And that happened yesterday. And we're also getting some indications that there's some frustrations growing out there, not just from our school parents, but also some of the neighbors and local business people passing through the area. So you'll see a message go out today. So if you hear people say or ask the question, what is this business about only turning right? The goal is to keep the traffic flowing. If we keep the traffic flowing, then everybody, it's going to be a much more relaxed and civil, you know, dismissal from the school. We want to minimize any pressure that's created, but what that entails is everybody making a little extra sacrifice because people have to drive out of their way. So if you're entering or exiting the property and there's a gap in traffic, you can turn left. You know, I'm not suggesting that every time you go by, you have to go down, turn around and come back and make a right turn every time. No, if there's no delay in traffic and you can make that turn, that's fine. But if there are cars behind you, that's the moment to say, okay, I've got to go down, turn around so that traffic keeps flowing. So look for some updates on that today and tomorrow via special email blast.
I just wanted to thank you all for the orchestration of the pickup in the afternoon. It is like a well orchestrated dance with the bays in the front. We're in Bay 3, and I had absolutely no idea how it was going to work, but it really does work okay. You know, if everybody does what they're supposed to do, it goes pretty smoothly and pretty quickly. And it could become very chaotic. So I appreciate the work of all the teachers that are out there, and you, Mr. Conroy, when you are putting kids in cars. So thank you.
And thanks for the feedback. I appreciate that. I think, truth be known, the front dismissal is running more smoothly than the back right now. And part of the reason is, for years, the front parking lot has been the largest part of our dismissal. And this year we do in fact have more cars in the back lot than we have previously. So there's some adjustment process taking place there. But our hope is to have all 3 of those dismissal areas operating with the same level of efficiency. And we'll get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time to kind of work out a few of the bugs in the system. But thank you for that feedback. Much appreciated.
Mr. Conroy, there is another question related to carpool. Do parents have to do car line pickup, or is there an option to park over by the church and walk over to pick up? This parent will be helping. It'll be easier to avoid the pickup by doing that. So just addressing that question.
Sure, great question. So if you're volunteering in the school, and your volunteering time ends at the end of the day, then you could certainly park over by the church and pick up your child. But as an alternative to participating in carpool, no, we wouldn't endorse that because we'd want everybody to participate in the same process. This was, truth be told, a greater challenge in the past. We implemented this carpool system last year. Prior to that, all the cars would park and parents would get out of their vehicle and walk over to the courtyard and follow a circular route and pick up their child and go back to their vehicle. When that was the process, then we did have more people parking over at the church. And so that was something that I had to provide reminders to those parents on from time to time. We don't have that occurring as much now because everybody's staying in their vehicle to drive through the dismissal process. But so again, if you're volunteering, yes, that's fine. But if you're not, we would invite you to be part of the carpool process.
Mr. Conroy, this next question may be addressed with what the information you're gonna be sending about the back lot. Can someone direct traffic in the back lot? Some parents do not know where to go when all the spots are filled.
Right, so that's part of the plan. We're going to create more spots. And so there'll be some direction out there to help parents learn that new process. I also anticipate being out there for a couple of days just to kind of keep an eye on the traffic on Stonewall, make sure that everything is flowing as smoothly as it can. So help is on the way.
Okay. Another question about carpool for safety. If it is only based on the number to pick up your child, if one of our, the emergency contact goes and picks up my child, would they need to go into the office to pick up before dismissal? Just concerned on the number pickup since my child is in kindergarten.
Sure. So, you know, a parent or a designee could pick up at the front office, that's fine, but it would not be required. What I would suggest is the first time that you have an emergency contact pick up, instruct them to have their photo ID ready and office to make sure that we have authorization. So just kind of prepping them for that in advance would be helpful.
Okay, I think I have, yep, I think we've gone through all of our chat questions. Anyone else have anything else, please feel free to go ahead and ask that at this time.
Hi, I'm Stephen Black, and I'm the father of a kindergartner named Elias Pincus. He told me the last time I dropped him off that I could park and go in to meet his teacher, and I don't know if that's a thing that you only do for the first few weeks, but I was hoping you could give a little bit more information on that, or if there will be like a back to school night for kindergartners where we can get to know their teacher.
Sure, wonderful question, because it's so important that a parent be able to recognize a teacher and have a relationship with that teacher, know who's going to be working with their child every day. So there's not a back to school night for kindergarten because we offer orientation the third week of August. So that took place in the evening, and then we also had that day for the child and the parent to come into the building to meet the teacher and have that experience. However, families who are starting later in the year, they don't have that opportunity. So my recommendation would be, if you feel like you've not yet had sufficient opportunity to interface with the teacher, I would send them an email and ask if you could schedule a time to come by for a visit after school. We don't allow parents to actually come into the building in the morning with their child for a couple of reasons. One, right now we're trying to limit the number of people in the building as related to COVID, and then also from a school security standpoint. Anybody that comes into the building would have to go through the front office and be badged in and then allowed into the building. But I don't want to diminish your question and certainly understand where you're coming from on that. So I think an email to the teacher would also allow the teacher to carve out time when they can be 100% focused on your questions and your interests. Those conversations at the beginning of the day can be tricky because they're trying to manage the group there and make sure that, you know, Sally has what she needs and Johnny's putting his things away, and it's hard for them to have a conference at that time. So just reach out to them with an email and they'll be happy to speak with you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So is that all for the questions, Mrs. DeVore?
I don't have any additional, oh wait, I think we just have one come in. Yes. How late does the child stay in the room or waiting area to be picked up in the afternoon before they are brought to extended day? We are planning picking up our child slightly later than 3 to minimize the waiting time in the parking area, but not too late that they're already in extended day care.
Very clever. Very, very clever. This is good to hear. Yeah. And some of this just naturally happens. And the first couple of days of school, everybody shows up early and on time, and we have tremendous traffic. But then there are parents who realize that they can still pick up their child on time and arrive in the middle of carpool. So that's a great strategy, and it helps us out as well. Right now, carpool is finishing around 3:25, and that's for all three of the dismissal areas. So what I would suggest is being on site, by 3:15, just to make sure that you're here, no later than 3:20. 3:15 I would aim for, because over time, I believe that carpool will improve. It will go even faster, partly because we'll get more efficient, but also as student activities start and we have students staying after school, whether it's for advanced band on Tuesday or clubs, we'll have fewer cars participating in dismissal. So we could easily shave 5 or 10 minutes off that dismissal time. So I would say no later than 3:15.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. Are there any programs put on by the younger children, i.e. like a Christmas play, or they're not happening due to COVID?
I hope that we'll have our Christmas pageant this year. It's so beautiful. And we have students across grade levels participating in that. There is a Christmas pageant in December right before the holiday. And typically there is a spring program as well that the students perform in. Because of the size of the school, Ms. McPhillamy, our music teacher, will have a portion of the students participate, not necessarily all the grade levels. So she's mindful in her planning that if she has particular grades in the Christmas pageant, other grades would be in the springtime show. And then there are sometimes other presentations. So for example, in the 3rd grade, they have traditionally done a presentation about the US, the United States, all about the different states. 4th graders have done a Virginia presentation, and those typically take place late winter, early spring.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Conroy. That's all of the questions we have in chat.
Thank you, Mrs. DeVore. Well, before we wrap up, Mrs. Ballard, so kind of you to be on the call with us today representing the PTO. Is there anything that you wanted to say or share this morning?
I'm so glad there's some interest in all the different things we do as an organization within the PTO. And we are so happy to have new faces and voices in the PTO to help us come up with new ways to raise money for our school and for our kids and teachers. And we have lots of things coming up. So please feel free to reach out to any of us who represent the PTO. You can always email me. My name's Kelly. My email, I should be able to put it in the chat here before everybody jumps off, but it's THE_Ballards, BALLARDS @mac.com. And if I can't answer your specific question about the PTO, I can just forward it on to who can. But we would love to have you. It's a great way to get to know all the parents, all the teachers and faculty, and to get your kids involved too. So we would love to have you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ballard.
Oh, I have another question too, Mr. Conroy. Will we have the All Saints Day where the students dress as the saints? And I think it's pertaining more to the younger ones, not the 8th grade program.
Sure, the 3rd graders, yes.
Yes.
Every year they dress
Yes.
up in the likeness of one of the saints that they've been studying and learning about, and they process in at the beginning of Mass on All Saints Day. I anticipate doing that again. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do that at this point.
We take some beautiful pictures. I get to take the pictures, so I love that day as well. By what time does a parent get a call if a child is counted absent and the parent has not called in that the child is not going to be there?
Yeah, really good question, because it pertains to student safety. So our goal is 9 a.m. So teachers are asked to take attendance first thing in the morning, to have that submitted no later than 8:30. And then Mrs. Krupa begins going through her process, going through all the voicemails, emails, cross-referencing everything, so that we can put that call out there if there's a child that is not in attendance, but we haven't heard from a parent yet.
Okay, then a question for extracurricular clubs for 5th graders, which like a battle of the books type thing. But we haven't started those yet, but just referencing those.
So the question is, what activities are there for
Fifth
fifth
grade.
graders in
Mhm.
particular?
Mhm.
But, off the top of my head, there's the band, choir, altar
Battle of the Books
serving.
too, right?
I'm sorry?
Battle of the Books is that
Battle of the
sixth
Books.
grade.
Yes. Reading
Safety patrols are
fifth grade,
fifth.
I believe.
Mhm.
SCA class representatives. And then the CYO sports that we talked about. So actually, there's quite a handful that fifth graders would be eligible for.
Question about mass. Are parents allowed to go to mass when the students go? I know kindergarten will start going in November, All Saints Day.
Yeah, so parents are invited to go to the school mass as well. This year, our school mass takes place with the parish. Last year, it was a closed mass and it was just our students, faculty and staff. But the priests are not able to offer a separate mass this year just from a scheduling standpoint, nor do we feel it's necessary at this point. So our students go to mass with the parish at 8:30 and parents are most welcome to join us for that.
I had a question regarding to health. What is the procedure this year if a child has a runny nose / cold? And if a child ends up with COVID, will they be given work to do at home or will they make up work at school when they return?
So if your child is exhibiting any symptoms that are consistent with COVID, do reach out to the nurse to have that conversation. And there's no easy answer to the first part of that question. If a child has a runny nose, well, the nurse is going to have a conversation with that parent about, does that child have any other history of illness? Do they suffer from allergies? Does it seem to be the time of year when they have allergies? And she'll kind of go through a thoughtful process. At the end of that consideration, then she'll make a recommendation, and we're always going to err on the side of caution. If there's multiple symptoms, for example, if you called in and you said, well, my child woke up this morning, has a sore throat, a cough, we're going to say, no, you need to keep the child home and monitor. And then the nurse would speak with you about whether or not there've been any potential exposures. In terms of staying on top of the work, at this point, we're not making live stream instruction available for individual cases of isolation or quarantine or small groups. If we have a whole class that we're going to be putting online or a grade level or greater, then at that point, the teachers would use Zoom to present live lessons to the students. So students who are absent on that sort of individual basis, they could stay on top of what's taking place through Schoology. And of course, the teacher would provide emails to the parents as well. You could just reach out and ask for confirmation of expectations as to what the child should be completing during their time of absence.
When I got a request to post Ms. Jimenez's email address, and I will do that again. It was high up in the, let me just grab that before we sign off here, because it was, I posted it, but now it's been pushed to it's hard to follow sometimes in Zoom. So let me post that again, because that will be a very popular one. That's the protection of God's children for those of you going through that. So I'm going to post that right now. And that is the last question that I have.
Okay, well, once again, thank you so much for participating in the coffee today. I hope it was helpful to you. And please know that you do not need to limit your questions to the coffee events. You can reach out to me, to Mrs. DeVore, to Mrs. Ballard, anybody on the PTO, faculty, and staff. Anytime you have a question, we know there's a learning curve that you go through, particularly as a new parent. So no question is too small. Reach out at any time. We're more than happy to help you. Again, really great to have you on the call today. And thanks so much for choosing All Saints for your family. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.